All right. Well, today I wanted to talk about what it was like to date a single mom and the pros and cons of dating them. Back during COVID, I started dating this girl that I met off of Bumble who was a single mom. She was attractive. She had dark brown hair and blue eyes. She had a good figure and was about 5'4". She was also very fun to be around and I actually really enjoyed my time with her. We met up shortly after matching on Bumble and we had dinner at a place that wasn't too far from where we both lived. Up until this point, I had never dated a girl that had a kid. I remember when she told me she had a kid at dinner, and I was definitely taken back at first. But it wasn't like a huge deal to me overall at the time, as she was very attractive, and she seemed really cool. She seemed like a genuine person. The conversation flowed very easily. We ended up kissing at the end of the date. We also had a ton in common. We had a lot of common interests together. We started seeing each other more regularly for a while. I would come over to her place while her daughter was away, and I would either hang out for a couple hours or just stay the night. She would also come over to my place and just do the same. We had a lot in common, like personality wise, and we liked a lot of the same things like hiking, going to breweries, shooting pool. Like I said, she was just like a genuinely cool person to be around. There was also a genuine physical attraction between us. And if she didn't have a kid, I think we would have definitely dated more long term, as we really clicked on like all different levels, like physically, mentally, sexually, like the whole nine yards. And we saw each other on and off for a while. I never met her kid, as we kept it very casual. She definitely wanted it to move into something more serious. I remember she wanted me to meet her daughter, and I just couldn't get myself to do it. She'd always suggest different things that the three of us could do, and I just couldn't do it for three main reasons. I think the biggest reason is, it may seem selfish, but I wouldn't want to be in a serious relationship with a woman who's a single mom because I wouldn't want to raise a kid that isn't mine, plain and simple, to keep it a buck. Teach their own, but I just couldn't do it. A lot of issues stem from raising a kid that isn't yours, and that can cause a lot of issues from the kid's perspective, and then just add a lot of stress in your life as well if you're a stepdad. I think the second biggest reason is I didn't want a kid to get attached to me. I think when kids meet a parent's significant other, they can become attached to them and may even view them as like their dad. And I didn't want to fill that role as a dad, especially 2 years ago. I also didn't want to be a person that has to see a woman's ex every time the ex dropped off the kid at their house. I guess her and her ex would trade weekends. Like, the daughter would stay at her house one weekend. The daughter would stay at, her ex's house the other weekend. And he would drop off the daughter off at her house on the Sunday after he had her for the weekend. And I know they had a somewhat tumultuous relationship as well. And that's the last thing I wanted to get in the middle of, especially when there are other options out there of women that don't have any kids and you wouldn't have to deal with that potential drama dating them. And I think the last reason that I could think of why I didn't want to meet her daughter is that if you're not the first person to have a kid with a woman, it's going to be hard for her to have as much attraction as she had with the father of her first kid. This isn't always the case, but in general, I think when a woman has a kid with a man, it's hard for another guy to stack up to, the first father in her mind. Of course, she could still be very attracted to you and you could have another kid together. I know that's what some guys do, but there will always be a part of her that will always still have strong feelings for the father of her first kid. And, we ended up hanging out from time to time and we kept it very casual. She was a ton of fun to be around. And, but at the end of the day, it just wouldn't work long term. It just wouldn't work long term for those reasons that I had. I think the pros of dating a single mom are that single moms are usually more fertile, depending on their age, of course. So if they were able to have one kid, they're more likely to be able to produce more. This isn't always the case though, as it depends on when the woman had her first kid. Some women may have their first kid in their early 20s or their mid 20s, and then by their late 20s or early 30s, they can't have another kid. But some women can pop out kids left and right, into their mid to even late 30s. And I think there are a lot of guys that date single moms for a few other reasons as well. I guess plain and simple, to keep it a buck, some guys just don't have that many options in dating. and they date single moms more out of necessity or lack of options in those cases. And I think if you were to ask men if they would prefer women they're meeting to either have a kid or not have a kid, I think 100% of men would choose a woman without kids every single time. But dating is not a game where every man has equal options. Dating, and especially in the U.S., it's a brutal competition, to put it lightly. And some guys can be much more selective than others. They have that luxury to be. But some guys, a lot of guys, just don't have as many options to date women without kids. And women with kids tend to be less picky. That's also not always the case. But I think most women that have kids, they tend to be a little bit less picky about looks and certain other factors. So it gives that guy a chance who may not have a lot of options to date her. And I think some single moms are attractive when they're still young. And I think it allows some guys to date a much more attractive woman than they are, what they would be able to get from a woman that doesn't have kids. So a guy may be able to get a single mom that is, 1 or 2 points higher than them in attractiveness. Let's just say the guy is about a 5, but he's able to date a single mom who's about a 7, because a lot of single moms have already gotten a child from a more attractive man. And now they're looking for more of a provider type guy at that point. And they may not mind that he isn't the most physically attractive. Whereas if he were trying to date a woman who doesn't have a kid, she's going to be looking for, the most attractive man that she can find to have her first child with. And she may not give that guy who's not super attractive a chance, but the single mom is more likely to give that man a chance. So he's more likely to succeed in that relationship with her and dating her, whether it's short term or whether it's long term. Well, that's my experience dating a single mom and dealing with the pros and cons of dating them. If you've enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like. Feel free to comment down below your experience, and feel free to subscribe. Until next time, take care.